the kickoff point for the idea of Doxly happened in the middle of the night. We were sitting in a room surrounded by folders, all these metal accordions with each folder representing a document in the deal, just doing a confirmation check that we had every document, every signature for closing. And we were short one. There was a side letter that I got added to the deal in the middle, and it didn't get on the checklist because the junior associate didn't know it was being even drafted. And so it didn't get into any signature packet. And when you have a 30 million plus deal that hinges on one signature page that you didn't collect, it's just very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point, I was like, gosh, the fact that like this document didn't get on this checklist, that everything wasn't like real time, that's where the idea came.
Welcome to the Women in Legal podcast with Chelsea Lambert, where we share the stories of women who are making waves in the legal industry as leaders in law, practicing attorneys, or by working as specialists in areas like legal technology or legal marketing. Listen and be inspired to grow in your own career or find the perfect speaker for your next event.
Hello, and welcome to another episode of the Women in Legal podcast. My name is Chelsea Lambert. I am your host, and today's guest is Haley Altman. Haley, we met years ago, face-to-face at ILTA, but before then in discussions because you had just launched Doxly, which is an incredible product. We're going to talk about that today. But at the time, right before you came up with the idea for the product, you had been practicing as an attorney. And I really want to spend some time and focus on your journey of, what was the breaking point for you? One, motivation to become a lawyer, but then after practicing for a while, what was really that breaking point for you to launch the product? And can you tell us a little bit about your journey and where you are today? Because it's been a crazy couple of years. You're on a wild ride right now.
It has. No, it's been an incredible journey. And, I became a lawyer. It's been an interesting path, like all the way around. I feel like my life has had a couple of like pretty sharp left turns. I always thought I'd be a doctor. I was a chemistry, poli-sci double major. I used to do cancer research. And what really kind of led me to the law was actually starting to work in lobbying. And so you just got this understanding of what companies need to be able to kind of move their mission forward. And that really attracted me to feeling like, how can I help businesses grow and achieve their objectives? So when I started practicing, I've always been in the transactional corporate practice and really focused on that idea of how do we take amazing ideas and find ways to create companies around them that can have a meaningful impact, on the world. So in my practice, I was fortunate enough to go out to Silicon Valley in the heart of like kind of the tech revolution and work at Wilson Sonsini and see so many companies kind of coming to the forefront, changing the way work was done, taking kind of outdated processes and really, really revamping them and making work better. So when I came back to Indiana, I was really committed to this career of growing a practice in the legal industry. But being, I grew up in Texas. I moved to Indiana for high school and college and law school, and leaving at the beginning of my practice to go to a different place, I had to figure out, how do you get customers? How do you get clients in this, legal market? And so what I did was start to create products within the law firm. And I didn't know that I was doing it. I just instinctively thought, gosh, I need to create business. So what am I going to do? So we created a startup company package to help clients get legal services for their ideas. And then once we had the clients, we created an investor directory to figure out how to help them get funding in the Midwest, where we don't have as much access to capital. So we started doing that. And what that led to is having a lot of clients that were both my own businesses that I was helping grow, obtain capital, even doing exits, as well as the larger M&A private equity that I would do for the firm. And so what happened basically, I was a senior associate and I was managing so many different client relationships. And I was constantly at the office at like 2 a.m, trying to close out these really complicated deals. And anyone that's done transactional work, there's always something crazy that comes up around closing. And the kickoff point for the idea of Doxly happened in the middle of the night. We were sitting in a room surrounded by folders, all these metal accordions with each folder representing a document in the deal, just doing a confirmation check that we had every document, every signature for closing. And we were short one. There was a side letter that I got added to the deal in the middle, and it didn't get on the checklist because the junior associate didn't know it was being even drafted. And so it didn't get into any signature packet. And when you have a 30 million plus deal that hinges on one signature page that you didn't collect, it's just very stressful.
Mm-hmm.
So from that point, I was like, gosh, the fact that like this document didn't get on this checklist, that everything wasn't like real time, that's where the idea came. And being an attorney and, the risk adverse nature we are, I built the idea out for about a year and a half, did tons of market research, what was out there, what was needed, talked to other lawyers, and then got connected with this venture studio, High Alpha, that has 4 partners that have built incredible enterprise SaaS companies looking to build the next generation of companies with the next generation of leaders. And so they were interested in legal and all the deals that they'd done. So we started talking, and during this time that we are having this conversation about the idea for Doxly and how to really bring it forward, I went from being equity partner from income partner to making equity partner. So all these discussions are happening. Should we partner together to create Doxly? And I hit the ultimate goal in the attorney world, and I made equity partner. And so for me, I was like, well, I want to see this business be created. I feel like it's so needed as a practicing transactional attorney that I wanted it to happen, but I was at the happiest point in my career. I told my husband that I was going to leave the practice of law and build Doxly. And that was about getting closer to 3 years ago now. And it has just been a roller coaster ever since.
Yeah, and you have, now you have a team, and we talked a little bit about that when we spoke at Legal Week of, what it's like and going through that evolution, from a practicing attorney to a, business owner, of hiring and seeing your staff really come into their own and grow in the roles that you've provided for them, and to be able to build a business that gives opportunity to others. I mean, I've been through that a couple of times in my life, and I'm currently scaling our organization now. And, to see where somebody's path is, and to be able to give them that opportunity to really grow and excel and move forward in their career in a way that you wouldn't normally be able to provide them within a corporate environment, I think is something really, really special, and something that I know you've been really passionate about. So can you share, a little bit about what that transition's been like, moving from a practicing attorney to the role of CEO of a really, really quickly, incredibly fast growing legal tech organization?
Yeah, no, Chelsea, you're right. It is. It's just like when you think about all that goes into hiring and helping grow people, it's a really amazing experience. And I'm really grateful to have. But when you think about it, it's so different from the legal market of working in a law firm and working with a team. In those contexts, it's like I was a swimmer when I was in all the way through college. And swimming is like the best individual/team sport. So at the end of the day, you win as a team. You have relays where each person on the relay is like part of like hitting this goal. But there's so much that you have to do on your own individual events that you have to move forward. And I kind of feel like that's how the practice of law is as well, in like kind of the firm environment. We're all a team. We all have the ultimate goal of building this great firm with an incredible client base. We work together, cross-functionally to move deals forward in the transactional space. I work with my tax counterparts in IP to move things forward, or I rely on associates to help me and paralegals to help pull these deals together. But a lot of the work is very self-driven. So how do I manage my clients? How do I kind of do everything? At a certain extent, one of the things that lawyers have to learn is how to delegate, because we get so used to doing everything on our own that being able to kind of delegate and then help manage and grow the associates is a real skill that you have to learn. But when you move into the business context, when you move into the business world, this is really a totally different sport. The individual component is really one piece of like a much bigger puzzle. So how you build a team and how you get that team to really work together is so critically important. And one of the values that we kind of quickly learned would be really critical to growing Doxly. We knew we wanted to grow a team, but we're like a small but really mighty team that we've built together. And so the only way we win, the only way Doxly succeeds is if we win together. And so that's one of our big value props is we win together. So I think that kind of shift in that I can do things and I'm at the center of like representing my clients is totally different when we think about Doxly and how Doxly really comes together. Yes, someone has to make a large portion of the decisions on direction and things like that, but we can't do this without the entire team. And it was that shift in mindset of realizing that I have to let go of all these critical parts of the business and empower people that have more experience in those areas and that can really drive those initiatives forward is incredibly critical. So that was one of those lessons I didn't know until I kind of got into it, is just how important and critical it is to surround yourself with a team that complements you, but fills in the gaps where you may not, which may not be your superpower. So understanding like kind of where I best fit into the company, how I best help move us forward, and then really learning how to empower people to move forward. So I can give you two examples that have been like the most like kind of rewarding. So when I started Doxly, there was someone that had left Ice Miller, where I had used to work. He was an executive admin for one of the partners at the firm, and we met just to talk about what he would do next in his career. And I was like, well, you know what? You've dealt with client calls on a regular basis. Like, why don't you come in and let's just see how this goes, and we'll kind of trial this out and see if it would be a good fit for you here. And he started out kind of with this initial, like, let's help talk to initial customers on a customer success side. And then kind of blossomed into like kind of the office operational administrator, like really keeping everything together and helping out in all these different areas. But what we realized is he had a real aptitude for marketing, putting together the blog post. He'd seen the industry enough, so he knew how to do that. He'd done enough stuff from his job of managing events, and he was able to put together all of these incredible webinars and marketing events for us. And he is like, in the past 2.5 years, Damien's blossomed into this just incredible employee. And now he's in a marketing role. And it's like, sometimes you bring people on, you take chances on them, and you give them the ability and freedom to see where they really excel. And then you help them continue to achieve in that. We've done the same thing with an OR Fellow, which is a program for students right out of college, and had someone else, Michael, that started in our customer success team and is now like partnering with me on building the product, coming up with the product vision. What do the features need to be? Talking to our customers, creating the requirements. And it has been an incredible growth for him as well. He's almost 2 years into the company, and it's been awesome. And so it's like those moments where you find that raw talent and you find people that are passionate about what you want to do, and you just empower them to really grow into the opportunity. And it has been so incredibly rewarding to be a part of.
And I love that you used, you had so many great points in your explanation of that transition. That one, the struggle that we have with delegating. I think that how you explain that you have to let go of things that are not your superpower. That anyone could have said it better, because that really is, when looking at your business, as an entrepreneur, as you're scaling, leading a tech company, leading any organization, whether it be growing your own law firm or building a team, it really does come down to, and I've gone through this myself and can truly identify, is the what best serves my business, what best serves my team, how can I create the most opportunity and push us forward the farthest. What is that superpower? And anything that doesn't fall into that category. And in the beginning, it's especially hard because you just don't have the funding or finances or capital in a lot of cases to hire. You mentioned that you have a lean team. It's not like we can all, get funding and go out and hire 50 people. Even if you get funding, that's not how it happens.
Yeah.
So, the ability for you to be self-aware and to recognize what your strong suits are. I know for a lot of us, some of us are, if you've ever read the E-Myth, it's a really great book, the Entrepreneur Myth, or the E-Myth by Michael Gerber. It's a really great way to break down your personality type and who you are as a leader, because it explains how some people will gravitate towards, going into the weeds, and they want to be that technician, and they have to have their hands, down in the nitty gritty details all the time, whereas others are a visionary and a strategist, and they are, always looking, 10 years ahead of where they want to be, and they're providing that roadmap and then allowing their team to execute. So I think being self-aware of what our own strengths are, whether that be sales and business development, strategic partnerships, the technical side, you see a lot of CEO, CTO combination founders where one of them is very charismatic, outgoing, out there being the brand face, the advocate, getting the deals done, and the CTO managing everything behind the scenes and building the tech. So you see those complements amongst early stage tech companies and their lean teams, and really recognizing and allowing people to grow. I think one of the mantras that I try to have in the back of my mind is that to break the cycle of not delegating, which I struggle with tremendously, is that when we don't, we're actually robbing our team of the opportunity to learn. We're robbing them of the opportunity to grow. You kind of think about times in your career where you really grew professionally, not just like incremental growth, like had a massive breakthrough, where you mentioned, achieving that holy grail of making equity partner in a firm, right? How did that happen? And you look at your track record of coming up with incredibly innovative solutions because you had to find a way to get business. It's very different now. It doesn't come just from referrals anymore.
Right.
And so those massive leaps in your career come from someone giving you the opportunity, or your environment, or the circumstances, or the situation, whatever that might be, giving you the opportunity to figure things out and not having the answers.
Yeah. No, I think that's important to realize. One of the things I think that's the hardest about being the CEO, especially like once the company is, kind of publicized and you're out there in front trying to, generate interest and build that brand. Part of what happens with that is that it really feels like, especially if you're the CEO founder that had the idea, it feels like so much of this is on you. Like it almost feels like, oh my God, I have to make this successful. Like this was my idea. People invested in that, and they invested in all these things. So if you've got investors and you've got, brand recognition, you've got those initial customers, and you've got this team, it almost feels like so much is weighing on you in the CEO role. And I know a lot of people talk about this, is so incredibly lonely. Like you feel like so much of the weight is on you to figure everything out. If something goes wrong, or if someone doesn't like this feature and the way it's presented, it almost feels like you failed, so it can feel very personal. And I think the one thing that I've learned is that that's really why building that team of people that are really ready to just jump into it with you, you start to realize that it's not, it's hard to ever completely dissociate yourself from the fact that you kind of feel like this is your idea and you're trying to execute against it. But having that team and being able to really count on them and build them up so that they can do and achieve all these things and to see that growth, like, it's so important. But in this like really lonely position, finding that like team that you can really count on and empower, it really does kind of make the journey more, it makes the journey more rewarding. But it also really, it's really critical to moving forward. Like, no CEO can do everything, and make and drive a company. You need that team that is going to be there. And so you've got to find ways to empower them and to kind of help them move on that journey. It's just so important.
Oh, absolutely. And you quickly realize that the early successes and the early wins give you the momentum and build the strength and build the courage and build your confidence level enough to say, okay, we've got something, we've got proof of concept, we've got that initial round of sales. And you kind of think about those user numbers of hitting your first 100 and then hitting your first 1,000. And then, now it's like, where do you go from, okay, now we're looking at much bigger numbers than that.
Yeah.
And so having those initial wins gives you the confidence in the proof of concept and that you're on the right track. But you make a great point that it is so lonely. And that's a really incredible feeling of when you finally start sharing, you finally start saying, okay, I need to ask for help. And also the strength, you learn the strength to say no. I think
Right.
that just as hard as it is to delegate, saying no, especially for women, is one of the hardest things too, because you want to please your clients. You want to please, all the 600 or 700 user requests that you might have sitting in that development queue or that roadmap, and trying to prioritize everything. And, by nature, we want everyone to have a great experience and be happy. And that's very much part of what helps us build successful companies and successful products. But that balance between knowing when to let go, knowing when to ask for help, and the strength that you have to learn to say no, to control your time, to protect your time, your schedule, your company, your employees, and the goals of the organization, because it's also so easy to get distracted by whether it's other products coming into the market or, what we call, shiny object or squirrel syndrome.
Yeah.
It's so easy. Like, user comes up with a really super cool, idea, but you have to look at it like, is this one out of, 3,000 users asking for this, or is this something that's dominantly being requested and we think could be a great addition for the client base as a whole? So, and the transitioning into, how do you balance and how do you prioritize and protect your time, especially from a personal perspective? I mean, our health, our wellness, our ability to control our own environment so that we can be the best leader that we can. How do you manage?
I will be the first to admit that is, I'm not always good at protecting my own time and figuring out that like balance. As going from big law and making, partner and working like really long hours and things like that, transitioning to CEO, it's that's not always been my biggest strength, but it's something that I've had to learn. And really focus on. I think, some of the points you made around, getting that user feedback, and someone will come up with, I think that's one of the things about being the practitioner that's also the CEO. Like, you'll hear a customer say, oh, it would be great if the product did X, and you immediately resonate with it. And you're like, oh my God, it would be amazing if the product did X. That makes perfect sense. We should do that. And so you sometimes you're like, you get distracted by the little purple squirrels that someone comes up with, or these like great nuggets. And it is, in the beginning, it was easy to be like, oh, that makes so much sense. We should totally do that. But we've always had this plan. We've always had these like goals of what we wanted to do. And so what we really have to do, and what we've done, is we've kind of shifted from a product perspective of thinking about what are the goals that we're trying to accomplish in any given quarter. So from a product perspective, we've really changed to thinking about how do we do things on a quarter by quarter basis. And we look at like, what are the values that we're trying to drive with the product in this quarter? And so just for right now, like we're actually having an employee kickoff meeting for the next quarter this afternoon. And so the area that we're focusing on for product development and the features that follow through with that, right now we're focusing on time to value. How do we decrease the time it takes for each user of Doxly to understand and get value? Because one of the hardest things in legal tech is the adoption. So how do people, people are building in 6-minute increments. They don't have time to necessarily learn complex products. And we're a pretty large product around, managing an entire transaction. That's a pretty big leap for people to like immediately. So what we want to do with our feature improvements and features that we're adding on right now is focus on like some specific area. So that way that if there's something that's, bright and shiny, but doesn't necessarily fit into what we're trying to accomplish, what we've talked to our customers about what's most important to really kind of drive the business for them, then we can put that in a nice queue of things to do. So that's how we've helped. And it is so incredibly important to have like a focus, but being open enough to being able to bring in those ideas that may really have a massive impact on the entire customer base as a whole. So we try to have like set goals and values that we're driving towards, and then retaining enough flexibility to be nimble if something comes up. So that's how we kind of look at from a product perspective. As an overall kind of leader and managing my time, I think what I've really had to do is try to look at each week with 3 focuses, 3 main things that I want to accomplish at any given time, and really just kind of driving towards those at the end of the week and making sure I set time aside to accomplish them. Because if you try to have, this huge to-do list of things like that, there's always going to be a lot of little things that I'll get done. I always have like, kind of 3 main things I want to accomplish in a specific week so that I can focus myself on getting those done as we move forward. And now what I've really tried to do is find time out for like kind of personal, making sure that my family still maintains a priority. I have to travel a fair amount, and I have 2 little girls. They're 7 and almost 5. And, family is so important. And one of those proud moments of after being gone on a trip and traveling, I came home and my oldest daughter was doing a project on a model citizen, someone that was either a famous person or an athlete or someone that, does things for their community. And my daughter picked me because her reason was that I help people get jobs, and I run, by having a business. And it was just so incredibly rewarding that she could see those things. So it's just finding and carving out that time to recharge, with my kids and my husband and my friends. And so it's important to try to find those balances. I'm not always the most successful, but it is really important.
Oh, that's fantastic. And I love that example of, you can't always change the fact that you have to put in the long hours, that you have to travel, but it's how your children perceive and digest and view those efforts. And that speaks a tremendous amount to how much time you've spent with them outside of the office and how you explain why you have to be, on the road. My mother traveled for 6 months out of the year, 7 months out of the year, in some cases overseas. And I remember that there was always such a strong connection to the why behind that and all of the things, that we, got to do because of it, and how that translates into growth for family and contributing to your community and charity and all those other factors of the ripple down effect of what happens when mommy works really, really, really hard, and also sets an incredible example of character and ethics and integrity and drive and ambition, and shows that there's so many options for us as we grow up, of who we want to be and who we want to become, and sets an incredible example. So what is, we're winding down, and there are so many listeners of our podcast that are in various stages of their career, whether that be becoming a lawyer, so pursuing a career in practice, or pursuing a career in legal tech, either within an organization or maybe, on the fence as to whether or not they're gonna take that leap and they're gonna go start their own company. So what is the one piece of advice that you would give to our listeners who are pursuing a career in legal tech, in the practice of law, or within an organization?
I think the biggest thing for me, and it's just been the driving force of how I've kind of moved through my career as both an attorney and into the founder entrepreneur role, is building a network before you ever need it. I think having a network of people and putting yourself out there, it used to be the biggest challenge for me. Like I like talking to people. I love talking to people, but sometimes those initial conversations get me so nervous. And so I used to go, when I moved back to Indiana, I would go to the tech events around town that we would have. And, here I was kind of the pariah. There's all these entrepreneurs and, oh, I'm the lawyer that's looking for work. I'm the service provider. And I would just go and I would try to be very clear. I'm not looking to, get your business. Yes, I would like it, but I want to know about you. I want to know about the company. I'm so interested. I was genuinely interested in the companies people were building and how they fit into the entrepreneurial ecosystem. I just wanted to understand it. So I would go and I would challenge myself every time I went to an event to meet one more person and to not stand in the corner and talk to the other attorneys that were there. And so that's how I started. I would go and I would just talk to people. And then, when we started marketing the startup company package, then, I would find ways to speak. So I would go to those same events and I would go talk to the event organizers and I would say, hey, I just, this is something we're working on. If you think this would be interesting, I'd love to talk to people about it. And so I went about just meeting people and getting to know them and building this community. So that really is what led to me ending up having, an entire client base, is that, over time, those same people, understood my expertise and things like that. And they would call me with questions and then they would end up becoming clients. But when I went to become an entrepreneur, those were the same people that I went to talk to validate my ideas of building Doxly. And when I was going to make the jump, they're the same people that I talked to about what are the critical components of business that I needed to know and understand. And so then when I started Doxly, I started again building a broader network across the legal tech community, going to events. And the first ILTA that I met you at, that event, I didn't attend I didn't attend and actually have a booth or anything. I just attended and went and met people and talked to people, understood how they fit into the legal tech ecosystem. And I started to build a network there. And then as we launched the product and started to talk to people, I got, more advice of who to connect with. And that led to, more speaking engagements. And I was willing to put myself out there and talk about different issues and things that I'd learned from being a partner and starting a company. And then I had an entire network of people who could introduce me to people or give me advice on different parts of the ecosystem. And I have that same network of people in Indiana across the tech ecosystem that I can learn from. And it's just when you can build that network, you aren't selling something, you can make genuine connections with people and help them connect with others that you know or would be beneficial for them. It just creates this community. So when you need something, they're the people that you can go to and get advice from, and they're the people that are reaching out and helping you connect to others as well. And so I think that is the one thing, regardless of whether you want to grow into a legal career or make that change and jump into a legal tech company or starting your own, that network, that community that you can build is so critically important. And doing it and putting yourself out there early on when you aren't trying to sell someone something is so incredibly important and can pay incredible dividends for you throughout the entire process.
I couldn't agree more. It's you hit it on the head that you can pour years into building that network, and there comes these certain times in your life where you are able to reach out and start building that momentum, and of connections that you made 10, 15 years ago now all of a sudden are advocating for you in the community.
Yes.
And that's just an incredible feeling. And I think it's also a reminder that, to do great work and to have work and strive to set the standard of excellence and have integrity, because those things follow you. They follow you. Your reputation precedes you everywhere that you go, and that will proliferate through your network. And so, Haley, it's been such a pleasure talking to you today. Thank you so much for sharing your advice with our audience. And where can our listeners learn more about you and Doxly?
Well, you can learn more about Doxly at Doxly, DOXLY.com. We also have a Twitter handle at Doxly app. I am on LinkedIn at Haley Altman. I'm also on Twitter, Haley, Haley -Altman, ALTMAN. Happy to connect with everyone and love learning from people.
Thank you so much. I encourage everyone to reach out to Haley and connect with her on LinkedIn and follow her on Twitter. We will include links to Doxly in the show notes that you can find on the Lex Tech Review blog. Haley, I will see you again soon in person at a conference this year. I have no doubt about that.
Definitely.
Yes. And in the meantime, keep killing it. I love every time we get together. You always have, just such light and great energy and just fantastic news to share. It's motivating just to be around you and continue to keep building an incredible product. I know you've got a lot of heart and soul in Doxly, and it shows with how quickly you've been able to grow and scale your organization. So thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you so much for having me, Chelsea.
Absolutely. And until next time, this has been the Women in Legal podcast. I'm your host, Chelsea Lambert, and we will talk to you again soon.
Thanks for listening to the Women in Legal podcast with Chelsea Lambert. To hear more, please subscribe